Hey guys, so I thought I'd do a bit of a roundup because the Shanghai Major, welcome back to the channel, it's JJ here. Shanghai Major has ended. That is the Perfect World Shanghai Major, last major of the Counter-Strike year. And what a major it's been. What a fantastic major it's been. I think we've seen lots of incredible plays, lots of incredible clutches, and there's been some fantastic storylines to follow. I mean, just picking one of the many storylines there have been to follow in the major. You know, we look at Donk, a player like Donk, and we'll come on to Spirit a bit later, but a few of my maybe own reflections from the major. So for myself, I am maybe a bit biased towards FaZe, being a FaZe fan myself. I'm really proud of the boys. I'm really proud of the FaZe guys. I'm really proud of all of them. I don't think any FaZe fan or any Counter-Strike fan would have expected FaZe Clan to get to the grand final of another major. Of course, it is frustrating that FaZe couldn't get it over the line against Team Spirit in the grand final. But to be honest, a lot of that was just to do with Donk. He's an absolute monster, ridiculous numbers, putting up even in the grand final, shutting us down. But I do think FaZe did seem to lack that confidence that we were showing in the semi-finals, and I don't know what it is, but FaZe just don't seem to have that ability to know how to beat Spirit right now. A team like G2 have beaten Spirit multiple times. They beat them in the last world final just before the major to claim the trophy for that event, which was a big event. But I think some of the other interesting things to reflect on in the major was the run that Spirit had. You know, you can't take it away from them. It's an incredible run all the way to the grand final. Now, I think the really interesting thing for me is looking at the semi-final between Spirit and Mouse. That was a really interesting semi-final, having watched it. Mouse picking up map 1, and then Spirit going on to do the reverse sweep. I don't really know what went wrong for Mouse in that second map, or even in the third map. They must have just lost confidence, but you know, I think that's the thing. It's like if Mouse had actually just finished that game off in the semis, we would have won the major, because we have a pretty good record against Mouse, and I think we would have won the major. And when I say we, I should say FaZe Clan. Yeah, I mean, look at the context there. You got to remember Carrigan coming into this major. He had a personal family tragedy with his brother, and I felt really sorry for him at the end. I think all those emotions kind of came out. But the boys need to pick back up on their feet. And now, let's just talk a bit about Team Spirit. Have they really cemented themselves as, you know, the best team, or one of the best teams in Counter-Strike? I think so. I don't think they're the best team in the world right now, Spirit, far from it. I almost do feel like this was a bit of a kind of Cinderella run. Like, some days I literally wake up and think, hang on a minute, if Donk wasn't on Team Spirit, this team would not be getting the results they are getting. And I think that's true. If Donk wasn't on Team Spirit and putting up those numbers and being an insane player, I don't think Team Spirit would even be getting to the playoffs of this major. And then we've got a few upsets here. So G2. So obviously this is the big story from the major. Is, you know, you got the fans on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is going to be Nico's last chance at winning a major." Absolute rubbish, I think. Absolute rubbish. I think Nico's an incredible player, consistent rifler over so many years. And yes, he is getting older, but there is definitely still time for him to win a major. He just needs to find the right team. Do I think the right team is Falcons? Obviously the G2 team, very interesting coming into the major. We know that Nico is going to Falcons. Reports have also suggested, interestingly enough, recent reports have suggested m0NESY is going to stay at G2 and not follow Nico. So that's interesting. G2 definitely need Monacy, I think, to keep that team going. I think it's a pretty good choice for Monacy in his career. I don't think he needs to really go anywhere particularly. Certainly not to Falcons. I don't feel like that would have been a good move for him. I don't think the Falcons move is going to be a good move for Nico, to be honest. But if they prove me wrong and create some crazy team, then fair enough. But I think it really did hit Nico in that semi-final versus FaZe. I think it really hit him after that, after G2 bowed out of the major. There was a lot of emotions, clearly, from the player reactions, especially from Nico. You know, he knows that he is getting older, and that is a reality, and you know, those horrible memories will come back, I think, of past major failures. You know, Boston 2018, Stockholm 2021. Although the interesting thing for me about the Stockholm Major was when he missed the deagle shot from heaven right onto Simple on Nuke in the grand final. And if he had, you know, if G2 had won that round, they would have gone to a third map in the grand final. But we don't know if G2 would have won the third map. So it's not, some people kind of say, oh, if he'd hit the shot, he would have won that major. Well, that's not necessarily true at all, because who would have known what the third map would, how it would have played out? Who knows? The other really interesting headline from the major for me was Na'Vi. So coming into the major, Na'Vi, pretty much the best team in the world. They have won some big events this year, and they had been coming into the major, I think, as one of the big favourites to win this Shanghai Major. And they got knocked out by Heroic. Yes, you heard me right. Heroic. Heroic, a reasonably new team. So they recently took on Dexter, and I think honestly this Heroic team genuinely might actually be legit. You know, to knock out a favourite like Na'Vi out of a major is mental, and it was really, really impressive from Heroic. Just sad they couldn't go on to show any more good form. But I think Na'Vi getting knocked out so early in the major is pretty sad, and it's not a good end to their year, obviously, but it also, I think, does bring them down. Now I don't see Na'Vi anymore as being the #1 best team in the world. I think technically by the HLTV rankings, G2 is the best team in the world, but that might change, I guess, because Spirit have won the major. I don't know. But what other headlines do we have, storylines to pick up from the major itself? The grand final. Let's talk about the grand final. The grand final between FaZe and Spirit. Amazing grand final. I watched every minute of it. It was intense. It was incredible. And Sponge and Machine did a fantastic job commentating it. Really well done, guys. Amazing work. And I love your work as someone who loves to do it, commentary myself at the semi-pro level. I love it. It's brilliant. There was that moment on the third and final map where Rain and Rocks were in that 2 versus 4, and they won it. And and then it took the scoreline to 12-11, and all FaZe needed, was one round to go to overtime on the third map, and we just collapsed. FaZe just collapsed. Sad. I think it's sad because, like, if FaZe had got off to a better start in that grand final, then yeah, maybe FaZe could have won the major. But anyway, Spirit have won it, and they've now cemented themselves as a very good team indeed. And I think they're going to be very threatening. But I also feel like Spirit are going to find it difficult to keep hold of some of the players. Like, surely big teams are going to be, you know, asking if they can buy Donk out of his contract or whatever. I don't know if he's just re-signed or I think he might have done a couple months back. But still, like, I don't know quite how that's going to work out. If they can hold on to him, fair enough. Spirit can keep getting some good runs. Liquid did quite well at the major. That's another name. So Liquids, so you got Twist, Yakinda, kind of the bosses of the team, and then Naf just kind of does what he's done for years. JKS, the guy that's always the scapegoat for why every team he's been on doesn't do well in the end. He's the one that ends up being the scapegoat, unfortunately. But I'm not convinced at all by that Liquid team, to be honest, even though they got to playoffs. I'm really not convinced by them. I'm not convinced on Ultimate, the AWPA yet. I'm really not. I've seen him make quite a lot of mistakes. I know he can put some numbers up, but I think he really needs to just get as much LAN experience as possible, because he does make mistakes quite a lot, actually, having watched some of his gameplay. And I'm not a fan of Yakinda. You know, I'll put it right out there. I really think that Liquid need to bench Yakinda. I really want to see that happen, because I honestly think it will make Liquid a better team. He has been playing like absolute trash, in my opinion, for the past year or so. And I also don't like the fact that he was the one that basically kicked Nitro out of the team, or, you know, pushed Nitro so much to the side that Nitro just thought, well, I've just got to leave now. This is stupid. Like, he couldn't be the leader he wanted to be anymore because he got forced out the door to a certain extent. But anyway, let's get back to the major. So a lot of people's pick'ems got ruined, didn't they? Including mine. I don't know if yours did. You know, I predicted the Mongols to get through. I predicted the Mongols to beat Mousesports in the quarterfinals. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. So that's sad. Very sad. But yeah, I think those are kind of the main reflections from the major. I think it's interesting because from some of the tweets we've heard from some of the FaZe players, it sounds as if the organisation is not looking to make any player changes in this kind of break period between now and the next big tournament, which will be IEM Katowice in end of Jan. I think it starts into February. I don't think there's going to be any changes. As a FaZe fan, how do I feel about that? Not brilliant. I think maybe the result at the major, you know, getting second place at the major after having a pretty awful year for FaZe. A pretty disappointing year, really, in terms of performance at big events, just bowing out far too early. I would like to personally see some changes in FaZe. I think the team needs a bit of a freshen up. I like Frozen. I know he's been putting up the numbers, and that's great, but he's not, you know, he's not Twist. Like, he's not Twist. You know, he's not the superstar rifler that Twist was. And I think Frozen kind of went missing a bit in the grand final at the major, and that, I don't think that can happen again. I think a lot of people said the Shanghai Major is, you know, going to be Karrigan's last major. I don't think so at all. I think Karrigan will have at least one more major maybe with the team to get some results, but we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see what happens. I mean, if we just move on maybe to looking at the kind of landscape now in the break periods between events, and look at some teams, and you know, we know of some changes. We know Nico going to Falcons, but it's interesting to kind of look across the board at all the different teams, and look at teams where you think, I mean, what teams in the comments do you think need to make changes after the major? We have seen actually some changes already from Virtus Pro. So if you think about this Virtus Pro squad, right, coming into the Shanghai Major, they've been together for quite a while. They all won the major back in Rio, which was the worst major ever in Valve history. The crowd, the Brazilian crowd, were dreadful. That was a major where in the grand final there was literally nobody there, because no fans at all, because like the Brazilians just came to be toxic and horrible to any other teams that were not Brazilian. And then when all the Brazilian teams lost, they just left. So never ever do a major ever again, Valve, in Brazil, because it's awful. The fans are dreadful. I don't like the Brazilian fans at all. You know, I want majors to be held in a place where, you know, people want to cheer for their teams, obviously, but where, you know, people love Counter-Strike. Like, I love Counter-Strike, and it's important that the fans at events should love Counter-Strike also, and want to just like cheer and enjoy the games, and enjoy the environment. So there's some news on HLTV to have a look at in terms of, oh actually no, Virtus Pro, yeah, sorry. So Virtus Pro come into this, they're a major winning squad, bear in mind. Having said that, Virtus Pro have really struggled this year to find any kind of results. We know James is their in-game leader, the Russian AWPer. He has a very strict system by which he kind of gets them to all follow. Now, do I think his system is a great system? I don't think so. I think it restricts the players too much, especially players like Electronic, who just need to go out and frag. But yeah, Virtus Pro went out pretty early in the Shanghai Major, and the organisation were in a hurry to get things right. I think they've been waiting for a good moment to make changes, and obviously now that moment has come. So James has been benched from Virtus Pro. That is the only change that we've seen so far, and who knows who's going to replace him. I have literally no idea. Another bit of transfer news: Yimpat, the Finnish teenager, very, very talented rifler for Mouse Sports, or Mouse. He has said, and I quote, "I don't know if I will stay in Mouse or not, but whatever happens, every choice is great for me." End of quote. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So, I mean, I'm not surprised at all by this news, because Yimpat is an extremely talented young rifler, and there will be, I think, a lot of big teams that will be interested and will probably make offers for him. So G2, that's another good team to talk about, because with Nico leaving, they're going to need to get another player. Now, I don't know whether they're going to try and get another kind of star rifler in or what, because there has been, you know, they've got choices. They've got Mobs MD on the team, the young kid. There has been some kind of like rumours that they might just try and mould him into the new Nico, which I think they could do. I mean, they're certainly not going to lack firepower, G2. They could definitely make him into the new Nico. But they're going to need to find someone to slot in. Obviously, they're not going to be able to find anyone quite like Nico, though, to slot into the team. But yeah, not feeling great about G2 at the moment. Snacks, I guess, is doing all right. He's got his confidence levels up a bit, because when he first came in as in-game leader for G2, he was just lacking confidence as a player, and whiffing and missing shots, and just not getting kills he should have got in games. And Hunter staying in G2 makes sense for him. Whether it makes sense for the team, I'm not sure, because I've not been impressed with him at all this year, really. I think he's become quite an average player and an average rifler, and that's not really what you want if you're a team like G2 who want to win trophies. But they've had a good year. You know, they didn't do well at the major. They lost to FaZe, like they probably would have expected to win in the in the tournament, but that's life. I think they can look back and be somewhat satisfied though with what they have achieved. You know, they won the Blast Full Final and the World Final, so back-to-back Blast events, and that's pretty good. That's something to definitely think about. I think then there's the question about who is going to be crowned as the best player in the world right now. Now, if we're measuring this over, like, let's just say the last year, so 2024, I think the way, and let me know how you would order this, but the way I would order it would be Monassi, #1, best player in the world for 2024. I just think he's been so consistent. At the Major, he was rubbish, to be honest. At the Major, he was missing in action. I don't know what happened to Monassi at the Major, but just not there, not able to do what he's been doing all year. But apart from the Major, I think Monassi has been incredible, pillar of consistency for G2, and just like unbeatable really when he's on a roll. He's had so many highlights this year, and he has taken G2 to some new heights of success. Second best player in the world for me at the moment, I think it's got to be Donk. I think Donk always has to kind of come into the conversation. I think this is where you have to bring him in for me as #2. You know, his performance at the Major was outstanding, and for his age, 17, isn't he? Youngest Major winner. He now holds that record, so he's beaten players like Kievi, who won with Astralis in 2017. Yeah, he's just, the things he can do with an AK-47 are just insane. And he has played incredibly throughout the year. But, we need to see that consistency from Donk. And then thirdly, I would put, actually I'm going to switch it up a bit, so I'm going to change it around. So I would put Donk as the third best player in the world, and then second I'm going to put Zaiwu. So second best player in the world would be Zaiwu. I think he's been incredible. Again, at the Major, Zaiwu wasn't really doing a lot. I don't know why. His form just seemed to be off. Well, actually, I do know why. Just thinking. So Vitality have got a lot of issues going on at the moment. I mean, Apex was very honest. He said to media recently that it's been so difficult for him to be an in-game leader on a team which feels like it shouldn't exist or doesn't exist, because there's no team spirit there. So if you don't know, a couple months back there were a lot of media articles circling around because Spinks was not happy at Vitality, and I guess that would have been fine if he'd just not been happy and maybe tried to have some conversations. I think the management of Vitality tried to have some conversations about with Spinks about what he wasn't happy with, to try and resolve it, as you would do. But then Spinks decided to go and badmouth some of his teammates and the organisation. When you do that, the team is dead. There's no trust between anyone else on that team and him when you're going around to other people outside of the organisation and your team and bad-mouthing your teammates. Like, that's just crazy. And should they have got rid of him sooner, maybe before the Major? I think so, to be honest, I think so. But anyway, they decided to play the Major with him. Spinks, there's no secret, he will be leaving the team. And I do wonder what other changes Vitality will make. I hope they don't get rid of Messi, to be honest. I don't know. I know he's not had the best form, but I'm worried they're going to try and use him as a scapegoat, to be honest. Because a lot of the kind of community and fans have been quite critical of him. But yeah, like, it'll be interesting to see Vitality, see who they're going to get, because I have no idea. I mean, Spinks was, I think, Spinks going is a good thing though, because even though I think he's a reasonably talented player, I would never want somebody with that kind of attitude on my team. And he's also far too passive as a lurker. You can't be that passive as a lurker. I think Rops has learned that. Rops was incredible. Same kind of roles as Spinks Rops has. And yet in the Major, Rops was incredible. Super, aggressive, getting loads of kills. Spinks seems to still think we're in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, that you can do these passive lurks around the map and get the kills. And he's just not been performing for the last couple of months. So I don't think they'll be sorry at all to see him go. Really, because I think they can definitely get a better player than him, and definitely they need to get that team bond back so that they can all trust each other again as teammates. And yeah, there's not really any other kind of confirmed news yet, or rumours on potential transfers. But yeah, that's just kind of a quick roundup from the Shanghai Major. Let me know if you enjoyed, and I can do more of these kind of videos in the future.